Hello and welcome to episode 3, How This One Plant Treats Multiple Diseases. I'm your host, John Malanca, for the Sacred Plant Healing Secrets Exposed, and thank you for joining us today. In our last episode, we heard some amazing success stories from patients who are using cannabis to treat their pain. These patients discovered that the sacred plant works effectively on their pain and that they're able to get off their pharmaceutical drugs and avoid all unwanted side effects. We explain how this plant stimulates our internal pharmacies to reduce pain and inflammation through our endocannabinoid system. We also learned about the sacred plant's entourage effect, how the plant's cannabinoids, terpenes, and flavonoids work together to maximize its therapeutic benefits. I want to send an extra special thank you to the kind and generous people who have already joined our movement and supported our mission. You now have access to multiple tools to help yourself and those you love to live a longer, happier, and a more vibrant life. Truly, this tool is to protect your health, your family's health, and of course, all your loved ones. Your support will also allow us to spread this critical information for free so that people everywhere can benefit. In this episode, we're going to look at how the sacred plant can treat epilepsy and also take a look at the medical cannabis program in Israel to witness firsthand how cannabis is providing miraculous relief for children with seizure disorders and patients with multiple sclerosis and breast cancer. First, let's hear from Ray, whose daughter Emily suffers from severe epilepsy.
My daughter, her name is Emily. She is now going to be 10 years old next week. She was 5 months old when we got her vaccination shots and we came home, and she had her first ever seizure, which lasted about 45 minutes. And, went to the hospital. We didn't even know what seizure is, to be honest with you. I've never seen one. We went to the hospital and they put her on a whole ton of medication. I think they put her on phenobarbital. They sent us home, and she had another seizure a few days, maybe a week later. And we have tried everything and more that the Western medicine has to offer. She has had times that she has had multiple seizures a day that lasted long. She has had seizures that lasted over an hour, where she had to be put into coma, basically. We've tried a lot of other treatments, like there are alternative treatments like neurofeedback, biofeedback, diets, parasite treatments. I mean, you name it, we've done it. Ancient Indian treatments and Kabbalah treatments. I mean, you name it. Anything that was ever written with the word seizure or epilepsy in it, I have definitely tried on Emily. Unfortunately, all of them failed. I bought a lot of CBD oil from different vendors in California, and most of them didn't work, and if one worked, it was not consistent. The problem was consistency and not being able to obtain it again, and if I did, it wasn't the same, maybe. And the products were not consistent at all. There was no test results. There was no ratios. You just had to get it and give it to your child. And so we did that for a while, and after maybe a few months of trying that, we found out that we don't have consistency. It was good, and then it was bad. It was worse sometimes. So the challenge was there, where a parent like me was supposed to give something to his child, not knowing what it is that I'm giving them. And if it worked, what was it that worked, so that I can copy that? That didn't exist for me. That was my biggest challenge. It's definitely a lot of work. There's a science behind it. You have to do everything consistently. You have to make sure everything is always the same. You have to maintain conditions exactly the same way. So my daughter, at the time when she has been on most medications, multiple 4 medications, she's had multiple seizures a week or a day sometimes. Ever since I've started her on this oil, she is now almost medications free. So we have been able to taper almost all of her medications off, and we're still going until she is completely medication free. Due to the fact that she is almost medication free, her cognitive has improved so much. She's talking more than ever. She's running, jumping, much more energy. Learning ability is improved, and appetite has improved. And the oil definitely contributes to all those. But her seizures, which are still happening, but they're happening on average about once every week or so, not every day, and they're controlled at home. We don't go to the hospital, we don't use rescue medications, we haven't gone to the hospital for a year or two. And I think once I learn or we learn more about dosing and ratios, and once we take her completely off of medications, I should have better control. I should be able to take care of that once a week seizure also. So I had hope again, and I knew that I'm going to do everything I can to have this and try it for my daughter. I just want to say, for us, out of everything we've tried all these years, this has definitely been the miracle. This has been the one that has helped her more than anything else.
Our medical system, the way that we treat these diseases, isn't working. We're not preventing disease, and we're not effective at treating most of these diseases. So, and this is a plant, the cannabis plant, literally, studies have been done on cannabis to show that it's effective at treating multiple sclerosis, that it stops epileptic seizures. I think it's one of the most amazing plants that's ever been given to us by God, and we're not using it properly.
One of the things you heard in Ray's story is the long process of figuring out exactly what formulation of cannabis oil to give to Emily and how much. We'll explain more about the different preparations and dosing techniques in episode 5 and 6. Ray's experience demonstrates why there's such a great need for research and clinical trials. It's clear that cannabis can control seizures in many patients, but without the proper research, parents are left fumbling in the dark. As you heard in our first episode, cannabis has been prohibited in the United States for the past 80 years, obstructing doctors and scientists from performing any research. For this reason, the research was outsourced to other countries like Spain, Italy, and Israel. Dr. David Bierman will share more details about the history and current standing of cannabis research.
I think one of the great tragedies in this country and around the world is that reefer madness dampened the enthusiasm to do research. And marijuana or cannabis has at least 480 compounds in it. Probably over 100 of them are cannabinoids, and many of the cannabinoids have therapeutic value. THC, the molecular character of it, was only worked on in 1964 by Raphael Mechoulam in Israel. Now, fortunately, we have research that's going on in Spain, we have research that's going on in Italy, in Germany, in Israel, in the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, the United States has really lost the market for cannabinoid-based, cannabis-based medicines.
Dr. Bierman made a reference to Reefer Madness, and this was a silly, low-budget film made in the 1930s, originally intended as a morality film to teach parents about the dangers of marijuana.
Smoking the soul-destroying reefer, they find a moment's pleasure, but at a terrible price. Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide.
Because of the hysteria around the perceived dangers of cannabis, scientists and doctors in the United States lost a valuable opportunity to study the compounds in this plant. Fortunately, other countries like Israel were not affected by reefer madness, and cannabis science was able to move forward there. One of the leading authorities on cannabis research, renowned scientist Raphael Mechoulam at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, was the first to isolate the active compound THC found in the sacred plant. Here, he expounds on his findings.
Being in a small country, I went to the head of my institute, asked him, do you know anybody in the police? And he said, yes, he phoned somebody at the police headquarters. So I went to the police, picked up 5 kilos of hashish. I was on a bus and people were just smelling and saying, what the hell, what kind of smell is that? And nobody knew that I was going around with 5 kilos of hashish. And for many years, NIH then supported my work. I had to apply for grants all the time, every 3 years, but they were very, very nice to us. And most of the work that we did on cannabis was supported by NIH. And indeed, my good friend Yechiel Gaon and I were able to identify the active compound within the next 6 months. And we were surprised to find out that there were a lot of other compounds, more or less of the same chemical structure, more or less. But basically there are 2 compounds in cannabis, the THC, which is the psychoactive, And there is a second one called cannabidiol, which is closely related chemically, but has no cannabis type effect. And quite a lot of our physiology is based on this. Something in the body acts on a receptor when needed, and the receptor then starts a procedure and things change. And we worked very hard on trying to identify a compound in the brain that binds to the receptor. We found in the brain anandamide, a compound that binds to the cannabinoid receptors. The THC mimics its activity. There are actually in the brain, in our body, probably about 200 compounds of the same type. And the body actually makes many of them. Now, I don't believe that the body makes a compound because it has nothing else to do. It makes the compounds because it probably wants to use them.
Moshoom was not only able to isolate THC, he was able to isolate the compounds in our brain that mimic the effects of THC. These compounds are called anandamide and 2-AG. Their discovery has made biological work on cannabis possible. It is curious to note that our own National Institute of Health was underwriting the Israeli work on cannabis while it remained off limits to the scientists here in the US. This is not surprising given what we exposed in episode 1 regarding the government's hypocritical position on cannabis. The person responsible for starting the medical cannabis program in Israel is its former Minister of Health, Yehuda Baruch. He had once been 100% against cannabis. Amazingly, Dr. Baruch changed his mind about the sacred plant.
My background in cannabis started actually only 10 years ago. I'm a retired colonel from the Israeli army. And I was at the time, when I started working with cannabis, I was the head of the medical management division in the Ministry of Health. For the first 2 years, actually, I thought it was, how should I say it, nothing important. Okay, especially as I'm head of the anti-drug abuse committee in Israel. And then I got a really moving phone call from a cancer patient who said it felt important to call me because he knows he's going to die, and he died the next week. And he wants to thank me for helping him to finish his life with dignity. And that was really moving, because for a doctor, if you can't cure the patient, at least to help him in his last days die in dignity, I think it's extremely important. And actually that was the turning point for me, that I thought maybe there is something in medical cannabis. And from then on, we started to erect the system that is still going on in Israel. And we decided to let certain growers grow cannabis, so we can schedule it and we can decide on what standards. We don't know exactly what cannabis we want, but we know we don't want any germs and no yeast and other heavy metals and so forth. We didn't get any permission. We started giving medical cannabis, and then we started to do the research because we thought it works. Because it's very unique, and it's very, I think one thing that allows it is the safety profile of cannabis. It's part of the story because we didn't have any dispensaries in the time. And after I allowed Tikkun Olam to open the first dispensary in a civil district, I allowed all the other growers to open the dispensaries within my hospital. For me, it's amazing. It's a change of 180 degrees. Okay, I went from something to the strict opposite.
The cannabis program in Israel is much more advanced than the United States. In the US, the majority of states have voted to make medical cannabis legal for certain patients. But that means the sacred plant is only legal at the state level. It's not federally legal. The tension around legality creates a huge headache for caregivers, patients, and cannabis providers, which we will examine in episode 5. In Israel, the cannabis growers are federally sanctioned by the Israeli government. The cannabis collectors enjoy full legal protection and are able to collaborate with hospitals and physicians to run clinical trials with their medicine.
We're at Tikkun Olam's dispensary. We're located in the middle of Tel Aviv on Evin Gvirol. It's a very busy street. It's the only dispensary at the moment in Israel because of the very strict regulations. Obviously, we would love to open more dispensaries so we're more accessible to our patients. But this dispensary is only for medical cannabis. And a patient that comes here has to show his license and an ID, and then he is able to come inside and take his monthly dosage.
Shalom.
בוקר טוב.
Hi, מעניינים.
בסדר?
I'm a patient of medical cannabis for 5 years. I've been diagnosed for 10 years ago with multiple sclerosis. I heard about cannabis treating MS by a friend. He passed away. He had cancer, and he was here in Tikkun Olam, and he met other patients with MS, and he told me that he sees the results, and it's amazing, and I got to try it. And I tried to talk about it with my doctor, but I didn't know much about it. And then I saw all the science, all the research they have of multiple sclerosis and cannabis, and I was amazed. And then I came to my doctor and I said, I gotta get the license. And it was a life changer for me. It helped me just to feel like a normal human being in daily basis, sleeping well, less spasm, which is a very big problem with MS. So it's much, much better. And for now, I'm not taking any medication. I only use cannabis. Even if I would feel a little bit sleepy or a bit dizzy, it's much better because I can't really function when I have the symptoms of multiple sclerosis. So I have 2 small kids, and it's much easier for me to function with them and to be a full mother with them. I take the CBD by pills. Using CBD helps me be much more alert during the day. I can function much more better than if I won't use it, I won't be able to do all the things that I can do now. And it would be very hard for me.
So we're in an accessory store. We decided that the patients should have, because our store is small, and we really want to provide a very intimate feeling. So we opened this store so patients can kind of feel free and fun to use accessories to the way they medicate. You can see here that we have different types of water pipes, hemps. We do bring the Volcano because they're authorized to work with patients. It's very important to have products that have been tested, and you can really feel safe if you provide an elderly with a vaporizer. And my dad was in a car accident, and he kind of broke all of his ribs, and he was getting addicted to morphine. And I kind of decided that this might be a way to treat it. So that was my first encounter with cannabis, and this is what I want to do with my life. I believe in it 100%. And I really believe in having medical cannabis as an alternative to patient care. So this is our nurses clinic. We have specialized nurses for adults and for pediatric, and they provide a whole consultation. The person who founded Tikkun Olam, Tzachi Cohen, his vision was to provide a seed-to-patient organization. So really to start growing, to provide the medication to the patients, and then to get their feedback and go back with that feedback to the cultivation, to the breeding, and to try to understand which strains are better to grow for certain elements. We believe that the connection between the producer or the grower to the doctors is essential, because then we can work together like we do in the pediatric department. We talk to the doctors, we decide on a certain dose to start with an extract, and then we kind of learn as we go, and then we replicate that.
שלום. היי, שלומך. אני צריכה תעודת זהות, בבקשה.
My name is Naama. I'm 55-year-old. In 2008, I had a breast cancer. Since I finished all the chemotherapy treatment and the radiation, things never came back to normal, and my life became just impossible. My life quality was so low. Inbal, she's my friend for very long. I talked to her and she said, maybe we need to try this, because they knew that migraines is one of the diseases that can be helped by the cannabis. Since I started the cannabis medicine, for example, my blood test is completely different. The nurse called me and she told me, did you see the results? You had never had a blood test like this before. Everything is so healthy and calm. It gives me a feeling that I am the person that I wanted always to be, and I could never be there. And I'm so focused, I'm so on earth. It's so difficult to explain this, but that's the feeling.
So the reason that we meet each other, that we need to write down to the health government, that we need more cannabidiol. It's a big argument in Israel at the moment that they ask us to use cannabis when the patient stopped the chemo. And we said to the health government not to cut off, because when you finish the chemo and you have a lot of side effects. So I really want you to tell me about that. I really want to go back to the end of the session, how you feel after when you finish.
So first of all, there was the major fatigue. I can relate it straight to the cancer because it was never like this before. I woke up very early in the morning, energizing. How do you say energizing?
Energizing, great.
I feel
no fatigue anymore.
No,
great.
Not at all.
What about the edema that you have?
The lymphedema is much better.
No painful, no?
No painful.
No. Great.
No, and when I smoke, I really feel the blood. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure what is it, but it's like something is
there. Of course.
It's happening in the body. That's what you feel. You feel like something is happening into your body.
And how many? What about your medicine? You used to take like 5 or 7 medicine. Yeah. What about that? Tell me.
Nothing.
You cut everything?
Everything. I trying, to lose weight, and I couldn't lose a gram. And now, for half a year, 10 kilo.
It's a defense system. As we understand now, the endocannabinoid system probably works and your body try to fix himself, and that's the reason we have such a beautiful result. So we're in the target, but I think we need to change the variety of the cannabis. I really want you to meet a new variety. So, this is CBD capsules. The name of the variety, it's Avidekel. It's a very, very anti-inflammatory. And of course, we serve CBD if we don't want the side effect of the THC. If we take it together, so you don't become confused or stoned or a bad side effect. And this is the way it's look, you see? It's a really normal capsules. Give me your hand, I'll give you one. And we can open one, you see? What is inside, it's flowers that make it activity by they warm it. And it's 0.08 milligram each capsule.
I think it's so unfair that there is something like this in the world, which is a present. It's a present for everyone. And it's so unfair that people can't get to it. Our world will change. I think the world will change if people would be able to have it. My cancer is gone. All the exams are good. I feel inside that everything is good. You feel the healthiness inside. It's a feeling. I have no other way to describe it.
Are you enjoying today's show so far? Are you learning a lot of great information? Do you want to join our movement and support our mission to inform the world on the truth about cannabis? Then please consider supporting our cause by owning this complete series so you can watch it again and share it with a loved one now or in the future. Your support allows us to continue researching the sacred plan and spreading our findings for free. Also, a portion of each sale gets donated to charities that are helping people every day to find relief for their pain and to live a longer and more vibrant life. Simply click the banner below to join the movement and support our mission. Thank you in advance. It's people like you who are truly helping to change the world. You've now seen how the medical cannabis program is working in Israel. Even in this small and religious country, the sacred plan is well established as legitimate medicine. One of the most well-publicized uses of cannabis has been in pediatric seizure disorders. Let's meet the families of some of these epileptic children and hear more about Dr. Meshulam and how the research around CBD and epilepsy began.
We thought that obviously these compounds are involved, whether the endogenous compounds in the brain or the compound THC that mimics their action. They are involved in many things, and of course there is a huge list of things that have been published or have been known for thousands of years. There is a story of one of the major Arab leaders in the 15th century who had an epileptic son, and he was given cannabis, and he was not epileptic anymore, but he had to take the cannabis forever. There are a lot of stories like that. And so we thought, well, let's try them. And indeed, in collaboration with a group in South America, after they had done work on animals, they went ahead with cannabidiol. So we isolated ultimately nearly half a kilo, 500 grams of cannabidiol, and sent it to Brazil, and they tested it. They tested in epileptic patients that nothing was helping them anymore. And they were helped. And out of the 8 patients, 4 had no attacks, 3 had much less attacks, and only 1 was not affected. And in the controls, of course, they continue to have their epileptic attacks. And I thought, well, maybe people start using it. Nothing happened. For nearly 30 years, nothing happened, which is a shame, because in some epilepsies in children, nothing helps. And over the last 2 or 4 years, parents in the US found that, yes, material that contains high levels of cannabidiol helps their children, the only thing that helps them. It was there in the literature 35 years ago. It should have been expanded.
They call it a drug resistance epilepsy, where the kids have to fail about 3 to 5. In all reality, it comes to 6 to 10 to 12 medications before certain doctors even consider it. And only then they allow us to try cannabis. I mean, we all think that it should be cannabis, resistance epilepsy, to where if cannabis doesn't work, which it will, then you start them with medications. Over the years, we tried close to 12 medications, including morphine, just to knock her out because nothing helped. Every medication we tried either didn't help or sent her to intensive care within 3 days. So after a while, I just decided that's it. I'd rather have seizures than the side effects of the medication. And I started researching and everything and got to medical cannabis and went through many neurologists here in Israel. And I finally got to the neurologist I'm with today. And thank God, about 1.5 years ago, he decided, okay, there's nothing more to do. We'll just do the medical cannabis. And it's been from the get-go, from the first few drops. She had dozens of small seizures during the day that I wouldn't even count. All those jumpings and absent seizures and all that, there weren't seizures for me. It was nothing. The big seizures, the neck breaking, breath stopping, all that were anywhere from 3 to 10 a day. As soon as we started with the oil, that first day, she did not have any of the small seizures anymore. That was it. I didn't see them again. And everything was fine with the oil. It just didn't cut it for the big seizures. There were less, they were not as hard, but they were still there. And then a friend of mine one day calls me and says, you got to try this. We tried the vaporization and it worked on her son. And she's like, you got to try this. I took one, gave her, and within the seizure, it started, vaporized her, and it just stopped. I was like, wow. It was like pulling the plug out of the wall. It was just not there anymore. You can see it getting full of vapors. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but that's the idea. And then I put it, and it does nothing bad to her, so it's really great. We started with one strain, and it was the oil, and it was the vaporization. And it worked great. Body does build a tolerance for medications, for strains, whatever it is. And as soon as I changed strain, it seems like it even works better. Like stuff is dissipating a lot faster. Oil from the new strain, I have to use less. So it just works to change every so often. One thing that I will not use is the processed plant. Like they try to make pure CBD, which means they take all the THC out, and I don't believe in that. I think the whole plant has to work together. And I've learned that with her, like the sativa is not good for her, so I have to use the other one. So it's It's a very delicate game of finding out what works for the kid. We learned so much through the research and stuff that we do, the parents and all that. And we have a group, we share everything. So we hear from all directions, and we just learned a lot on how to treat with cannabis, medical cannabis, and epilepsy.
There are two groups at least that are working on epilepsy, and possibly other groups that are working on other things. So in this case, we have the ability to do that. The Ministry of Health is allowing, under certain conditions, of course, clinical trials. And I'm a little bit involved in the administration, namely of saying yes, and I try to say yes whenever possible. And so I hope that it will go ahead.
When we understood that the future is in clinical trials of medical cannabis, and really there's not enough evidence available for doctors to feel comfortable to prescribe it, we understood that we needed to add somebody very powerful to our team. So we requested Professor Bentwich to join us and to be chief scientist in the company and lead our clinical trials.
The whole field was a sort of a black hole in a way from medical investigation, research, etc. So I have to admit that I became more and more aware of the wide physiological and medical effects of this whole family of cannabinoids to such an extent that I didn't need to be persuaded or convinced that this is something that is going to make even a revolution in medicine.
This is Dana Children's Hospital, which is one of the main children's hospital in Tel Aviv area. So I guess the cannabis story in epilepsy started in Israel like 2.5 years ago. And it began from the parents. And there was a kind of put a lot of pressure on the Ministry of Health. And eventually we got permission to use it.
I went to one of the committees about medical cannabis use. Legally, we're not allowed to bring not the oil, not the vaporization, none of it out of the house. We can only use it with them in the house. Needless to say, kids get seizures everywhere, any given time, no matter where. Very appropriately, my child here decided to have a really hard seizure as we walked into the committee hall. And all I could say, I was like, you see, I can't do anything. I mean, you tied my hands to where I know for a fact that if I could bring the vaporization with me, which has no THC in it anyway. When I had the morphine for her, I could be anywhere with her. There's other, handful medications that anybody can go around with that are 1,000,000 times more dangerous than what we have for them, and nobody's going to even question it. But this, oh no. So it's really, that's irritating. God said to begin with, he put all the medicinal plants on earth to help us, so it was just a matter of finding the right one. And that is the right one for so many things. It just so happened they decided to make it illegal, but it's not, there's nothing to it.
I really appreciate our medicine quality. This is grade A cannabis plants. Everything is organic from our spraying and from our fertilization. And we use microorganisms to enrich the soil. Everything here is sanitized. I remind you, this is a medicine. I really would like, that our government will regulate the use of juices and edibles and whatever you can make out of this plant, even fibers, everything. This plant is amazing. It grows fast, and you can treat people with so many diseases and so many illnesses, epilepsy, Crohn's disease, fibromyalgia, Parkinson's. On the left side here, We have the cheese pie strain. This is the CBD strain. All of it goes for the children, CBD oil. We produce another high CBD strains, but the ratio with the CBD and the THC is not there for the epileptic kids. So this one, we grow it, we know it works, and it's just like that. It's trial and error. That's it. You have to try everything until you get the one that is right for you. There's no other way, and it will do good for you. You know, it will never kill you. You can never overdose with this plant. You can trust it, you know.
The pregnancy was going fine. When he came out, he was basically gray, non-responsive.
We took him to emergency room, and after a couple of hours, he started having seizures. So they had an MRI, and they found a real, very widespread damage in his different parts of his brain. And Lafi, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you.
Rivotril is the name, and that's a medicine that you need another medicine to get off of. I mean, it's something that's very addictive, and it causes weakness and muscular weakness, and a lot of different things that really were like the opposite of the profile of the kind of medication that he needs.
And these were the first of 10 or 11 different medications that we tried in the course of a year. They all worked at first, and then they stopped working. Or maybe even didn't work at all. Then we gave twice, he was hospitalized for 2 months when he got twice the steroids. That was really effective, but unfortunately also after a while it stopped being effective, and now his epilepsy is considered to be
intractable, it's called, I think, that non-responsive to medication.
Exactly.
Now his father found out, I don't know where it was, that he read or saw on TV, something, they were talking about cannabis and epilepsy. And then we came to the doctor with, asking her if it's an option here.
We were lucky to meet this doctor who's making some research in Israel about the use of cannabis with kids with epilepsy. He's a neurologist. And he got us right through the bureaucracy, and we were in the right place in the right time, I guess.
Like for us, it feels like, I want to say 90-95%. So we'll still have a couple of seizures a day that are very minor, very small, and they pass very quickly. At the worst of times when we were hospitalized, he had every other minute during the day.
One after the other.
So I guess up to now about 180 children and adolescents. We tried to give them cannabis, and of course I'm referring to this specific group that do not respond to any of these options that I mentioned. And what we see is that there is some good results in about 20% of them. In those 20, I count all those who are more than 75% reductions. So some of them are 80%. So if they had like 10 seizures, they went down to 2, and some of them are 100%. So they stop seizing altogether. But those 20% is a sustained response for more than a year now. We have patients like close to 2 years, and the good response is being sustained. Most of them failed more than 10 drugs. All of them either failed surgery or they would not be good candidates for surgery. So that was the last hope for them. And 20% is not a large number for these families. It's a miracle.
His muscle tone changes. Like if he'll try to lift something, his whole body will stiffen up. But as long as he's like this and interested, it feels that maybe his essence is kept, and just there's no personality, not much personality going on. But there is, but you can forget for a second.
Yeah, it makes the gap between you see what you could have had, and what kind of it's easier to imagine what kind of a child he could have been,
Yeah. Every milestone that she goes through we're reminded of the one that he didn't go through. What I'm curious about is the effects of high CBD plant that you don't isolate or synthesize stuff from. Like, I'm wondering what the overall effects of all the different cannabinoids are together. So we have two kinds of oil here. The two, I guess, most helpful components of cannabis are THC and CBD. La Vie gets mostly CBD, that's the anti-epileptic. And so this is 30% CBD with a ratio of 1 to 20, so there's 1 or 2% THC. And the other one is THC, it's 15% THC, so that's where, in cases of when he's in distress, and so we give him 1 drop of that, and it's enough to, he'll calm down and sleep well. We don't use it every day, not every day. So this is a CBD oil?
That's all we give, just a little bit?
Yeah.
This is 5 drops.
And then in the evening, another...
Yeah, just under his tongue.
And other than that, he's not on any other medication?
That's it. Giving him medicine used to be a horror show.
Yeah.
It was, we got, I think the most we had going on at the same time was 4 medications at the same time. Each with its own, dose. One of them.
Just giving the medication would cause seizures.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he was so.
It was so stressful that would cause seizures. So this solution is being basically kept in secret from patients that might spend 2 months in a hospital for no reason. At the time, I was just happy to get it over with, and this might help. So good, but in retrospect,
I don't know if it helps everybody, but they should definitely try it as one of the first solutions.
Yeah, because there's no side effects that are harmful, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's like acupuncture. It can help or not help, but it doesn't. There's no problem with it.
There is a huge network between the families, and they try things that were not recommended by us, but once they succeed, they tell it to us, and we write it down, and all the results and all the observations, will be published and will be told to everybody who is interested. And I think it's maybe the second largest registry worldwide. We hope that the data would be considered valid enough, so then colleagues from other countries would like to try and give it a try, etc.
I hope you enjoyed our visit to Israel. Now you have seen what a federal medical cannabis program looks like. There is still a huge need for more physician education and clinical trials, but the medical cannabis in Israel is regulated, safe, and affordable. This is hardly the case here in the United States, where patients must fend for themselves. Now let's go back to Patricia Crone to see if she's finally able to find a reliable source for medical cannabis.
We had got hold of some cannabis. So now I'm making this oil that Rick Simpson has the recipe for. It's quite a business. You have to sieve it, then you have to evaporate the stuff in a rice cooker until you get a very tiny amount of oil. Wait a second, I have to remove myself from this. I mean, the vapors from this, you can feel it. It's sort of slightly sickening. So the vapors are flammable. That's why we're doing it outside. I haven't really considered the possibility that the police might come. Of course, they could in principle. I mean, everything's possible. Maybe they could smell the vapors. But, well, a respectable old lady like me, why should they burst into my house? Yeah, what if? You don't do that for the fun of it, that's for sure. You do it because you are determined to try anything you can to avoid imminent death. As I said, the really, really serious and scary aspect of whole brain radiation is cognitive damage. And that's why this oil is good enough to be worth trying. So I'm making tablets, hash tablets of Rick's oil. I am eating this stuff. It's too big. 1 tablet a day. It's disgusting. Totally like tar. My hope is no growth of the metastases in my head, but because there is a drug war going on, I'm risking jail in order to save my life. It's a pretty weird situation in which one has the sense that it's the government that's trying to kill you. It's very hard to make the same size tablets. If this were properly done by medical companies, it would be a lot better. I've been seriously overdosed twice. It's not nice, definitely not nice. And then it lasts forever. As they say on some website, you may feel as if you're going to die, but you won't.
When I think about Patricia's situation, I truly feel outraged that our country could turn its back on suffering patients like this. How can the laws continue to deny sick people access to a medicine that our own government knows has medical properties? Our own government filed the patent on the compounds in the sacred plant and can profit from licensing that patent. Yet people, like Patricia, are denied access to cannabis and must break the law in order to save their own lives. This must change. By watching our series and sharing it widely, you can be part of that change. You can help educate others and pressure our politicians to amend the laws and demand more clinical research. We'll dive deeper into these issues in episode 5 and 6, but now let's talk about our upcoming episode, which features more astonishing stories and sciences around the sacred plant. In episode 4, we'll look at how to treat cancer with cannabis. In our first episode, I shared how my father-in-law Stan was able to beat stage 4 cancer using cannabis. We'll meet other cancer patients who literally saw their tumors disappear after using the sacred plant and hear from the experts on the incredible way that the sacred plant is able to work against cancer. We'll introduce you to one of our central characters in this series, Jill, a single mother and a cancer patient who we'll follow closely over the next 3 episodes. Like Patricia, Jill is looking to use cannabis in her fight against cancer, and she received some incredible results. You will not want to miss this next episode. Until then, God bless. I invite you to join our movement, support our mission, and help us save lives. We're a small company that's committed to the truth and to helping humanity. Since we don't have the unlimited resources that Big Pharma has, we need to work together to educate and empower more people about the healing benefits of the sacred plant. When you support our mission by owning the complete series today, you allow us to continue research, interview, expose, and share this knowledge with the world for free. If you learned something, been inspired, want to watch it again, share it with a loved one, or just love how it feels to support a good cause, consider owning the sacred plant Healing Secrets Exposed today. Simply click the banner below to join the movement and support our mission. Thank you in advance. It's people like you who are truly helping to change the world.